Now that I can't run and don't work out due to retirement, now that I can't run and don't have to work out due to retirement, OMG BRB. Oh, bro. Yeah, man. I can't imagine, like, do you Evans, I don't know this about you, but do you have some issues like um that make it so you can't there's some like workouts and exercises you can't do anymore? Yeah, be right back. Oh, dude. I live like right over near you. Where you work. Like I said, I have a feeling like it's either you or one of your friends over there that found my dog. There's a Subway by the Chick-fil-A too. Yeah, that's where me and Kaylee ate tonight. Or I went and got us food. I only have 20% of the labyrinth left. The rest is my hip. Damn. Say, do I need to focus the cam, guys, or can you guys see me okay? I haven't done that recently. I think I'm good. No, it's fine. Okay, cool. All right, let's get into this. Let's watch what these
rooms over from
the Senor Express is always good spot as well. Oh yeah, man. See Senor Express. Did you ever go to Jim Bob's, Ray? Jim Bob's barbecue? Yeah, that place was good. So I used to work there. But they're still around, Ray. They're actually out at you know where the Las Cruces, yeah, obviously you do. They're out at the Las Cruces airport. That's where they're at now, dude. If you get a chance, maybe me and you can go get some lunch soon, and I'll take you out and buy you Jim Bob's. That'd be a good bro date. Um, I have a real question about the female in this debate. You know what? I've heard people don't really like her that much. Yeah, that's what I've kind of heard as well throughout the through the stream of stuff. I have tried Lalo's Sonora Dogs. Me and my wife go there sometimes. Actually, I tried their I think he did like a pulled pork sandwich a few months ago, and we went over had a pulled pork sandwich over there. It was really good. But I've tried his hot dogs too. Very, very good. How is she eligible to run? Well, you know what? Like, I honestly don't know enough about her to even know why she might be ineligible to run, Evans. Maybe you can uh, educate me.
we're sitting right now. And listen, this is one of those moments here. They're walking out. We are 4 minutes now from the beginning of this debate. A lot of pressure on each of their shoulders for a variety of different reasons. So far, listen, some of this is about the optics, the smiles, the waves. Yeah. They're shoulder to shoulder. They're walking over to the corner of the stage together as they.
Yeah, I mean, the next thing she will be able to vote. Wait, what do you mean? She? Why would she be able to vote? Oh my god, Evans. It was a sexist joke. I'm just too I'm too nice of I'm too PC of a guy to your sexist joke. Next thing you know, she'll be dude, my wife and me and Kaylee were talking about that today. She's like, I was like, like, I don't know about you guys, but like I'm pretty much me and my wife are pretty much aligned on our issues. Like she's changed my mind about a lot of stuff. I've changed her mind on some stuff. And like I don't know, I think women used to have the vote before they could vote, you know? Because they have what men really want, you know? I have I have to lower the mark for my dumb jokes. Well, I'm not the best candidate for jokes either. My dad, I don't know if you guys saw my video that I posted today. my short, my dad, he has some pigs that he bought so they can butcher them eventually. And I was over there and I was like kind of spraying them down with some water because they love getting sprayed with water. And then they get in their mud and play around. And so they had like this rock rake over there so you could like kind of scratch their back. And my dad walks out of his shop because my dad owns a mechanic shop. And he sees me over there like scratching the pig's back with the rock rake. And he goes, "Yeah, are you massaging your meat?" And I just took it as like, "Oh yeah, I'm massaging the pig, right? My meat, because you know, pigs are bacon and pork, and we love eating that stuff." And on the way home, I go, "Wait, that was such a deeper joke than I gave it credit for." It was really a masturbation joke wrapped up in a food joke. And I was just like, God damn it, man, my dad got me.
Go back to take their podium.
And Noel, I think we've spoken about this before. In the first debate, everyone dressed like Donald Trump. Do you remember that? Everyone had the navy blue suit, the red tie. Here we have a little.
Now, there's nobody contesting Joe Biden on the left, I guess, huh?
You need money to run campaigns. If you're out there in the crowd right now, what's the one thing you hope happens if there's a candidate you're vying for?
Well, one of the things that that you want to hear is fixing problems, solutions to problems. And I'll tell you something else that I'll be looking
No
for
way.
after the debate.
Did she just say that? Did you just hear what she said? Let me rewind it for you guys.
Problems, solutions. The things that that you want to hear is fixing problems, solutions to problems. And I'll tell you something else.
No fucking way. Jesus Christ, dude. They'll put anybody on TV these days. I mean, look who you're watching.
That I'll be looking for after the debate is the momentum donor, and that's the small donor, because the momentum
finally
donor
got this
is a
bit that I've
movement.
been trying
That
to
is
get.
a voter, because if for someone, Obama captured that, for someone to give $20,
I
they're
mean,
gonna
you're
vote, because
on,
they don't
you
really
got
probably
it,
have
damn
that
it.
$20 compared to the bundlers that are giving $100,000 to super PACs. So I'm looking for that momentum.
And they'll do it again.
Yep.
Well, the other piece of this too.
Okay, we got
listen,
2
and I've heard
minutes of
Noel's
this shit.
interesting. I've
Let's
heard
get into the
from donors, too, who
debate.
say going to be.
It actually now being
Oh, this is so gross. I hate all this shit.
Miami.
This weekend.
Moderate 20 seconds news.
We gotta figure out a better way to do this dog shit.
Tonight, a critical test in the race for the White House. 5 Republicans battling to become their party's 2024 presidential nominee. The candidates ready to make their case on why they're prepared to be commander-in-chief amid 2 wars on the world stage, how they plan to tackle stubborn inflation, and how they can unite a deeply divided electorate. Who is best to take on?
You think we need to get rid of the party system? Yeah, but I think to a certain point, the party system is like not human based. Like, there's always going to be 2 sides of every situation, right? And I agree. Like, it sucks that there's like tribes, but people are also tribal. No, not true. But I mean, history would have to disagree, right? I mean, there's always been like a left and a right, and you can almost distinguish that in every country, like that you go to. Everybody has like more of a they're either more liberal leaning or they're more conservative leaning. Correct? I don't know. Maybe I'm just ignorant.
President Biden. And can any of them first beat former President Trump, who's far ahead in the polls? The candidates are here. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former
Two sides of everything is natural. Yeah.
Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and
The fact that there's like within these sides, there's certain like things that can't be like just like talked about like on a even playing field for some reason. Like that's the problem. That's the like the fact that they have such a hard time finding common ground. Like it's like the right hand and the left hand not listening to what anything the brain is saying. You know what I mean? However, it is not the best when you are looking for say a president / congressman. Yeah. You know how I think we should do the next election? I say we just straw poll that shit. We put a Twitch chat up. Everybody votes. There we go again. Everybody votes. But we just straw poll that shit, dude. Just one big straw poll. We see who wins.
Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
From NBC News, the Republican.
There needs to be independent analysis of the parties. Too many people vote because it's their side. Yeah. Well, and honestly, you know what I think the major problem is? It's not even that people like it is a problem that they vote because it's their side, but there's I'm guilty of this too. It's like when it finally comes down to voting day, and I have some opinions I've shared on Twitch, and I feel a certain way, and then I don't go down to the voting booth and do anything. Like, it's pretty stupid of me. But I think I'm not the only one doing that. I think that's a majority.
Presidential debate.
And you know why? It's because it's not on my phone. Somebody figured out how to make me feel comfortable with voting for president on my phone. I'd figure out how to do it. I'm also a fan of blind voting in Congress. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm always blind voting. That's the way it should be. And also terms. We need terms and all that bullshit. I mean, I'm even good with like 16-year term. Like, so people can get some shit done. But let's after a certain a point, you gotta let people at least reevaluate your position. Opening voting promotes partisanship. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, let's get into this.
Live from the Adrian Arst Center in Miami, Florida.
It's a beautiful place, man.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Republican presidential debate. I'm Lester Holt, anchor of NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Welker, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press.
Hello, I'm Hugh Hewitt, host of Salem Radio's The...
You know, you can say what you want about like all the talking heads and stuff, but I've always liked Lester. I think he's kind of an interesting guy.
Hugh Hewitt Show. We are now just 68 days from the Iowa caucuses.
Every time I see him, it reminds me of Thanksgiving. Because he would be out there talking.
Voters will begin to determine their party's nominee for president. Tonight, we'll question 5 candidates seeking that nomination on how they're best prepared to be commander-in-chief. And, of course, how best to bring down prices impacting Americans across the country. We have 2 hours for a serious debate on the issues that matter most to Republican voters. Candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for answers and the opportunity for a closing statement. Follow-ups will be at the discretion of all of us at the table, the moderators. Invoking a candidate's name or policy does not necessarily mean the mentioned candidate is entitled to a response. We want to caution all the candidates not to interrupt or speak over your fellow debaters. If you talk over each other, the voters can't hear you. And given the critical issues we're facing specifically on the world stage, we want everyone to hear every word you have to say. Continued interruptions may result in loss of additional questions. And to our audience, please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard. With that said, let's have a good debate. All right, our first question, the opening question, is one for all of you. Donald Trump is the first ex-president in more than 100 years.
I'll be honest, Evans. I had to give partisanship a goog on the other monitor, so I could refresh what it meant. For justice in favor of a particular cause. Bias. That's interesting. I like that. I like that. That's the problem with media nowadays, or this big media.
To run for the White House again, and he remains popular among Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
This guy's weird.
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country. Well, I care. I am not going to sit idly by and let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits, I'll take the arrows, I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you. I will fight for you. I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than where we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay.
So interesting language thing to look at here. Yeah, I was about to say the way he talks is very typical. It's very like, you know, people who say you, not me, and instead of we and us, our. Say you, not me. Me, you, instead of. Yeah, it comes off as like disingenuous, right? Is that the feeling I should be like feeling? Okay. Yeah, I agree.
For the border wall, he should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw.
Yeah, like all these are like headline words. That's all it is.
I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we want a.
That is the one thing I can credit him for. Is I think I can appreciate how he handled Florida and COVID. But maybe I don't have the correct numbers on that, or have been. But it felt like Florida did pretty well during the pandemic.
Historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this: as the nominee next November, I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver.
Your time is up. Let me turn to Ambassador Haley.
Ooh, that was a cool little piece of production when he was talking. At the podium went red.
Audience, let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues. Now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that...
Wait, who does she say that about?
afford diapers. We're living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues. Now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines.
Misleading,
We've got to
yeah.
start
Who is
focusing
he?
on what's going to make America.
She's talking about Biden. She's talking about Trump.
America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make
50% of families that have children who need diapers. Holy shit, that she said that?
dollars in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers.
50% of American families can't afford diapers. You're right. Is she including babies? Or like just like people that like are above who has the most babies? Where are they born? Inner city slums, people already have welfare. Have the most babies. No, it's just a misleading stat. Well, you know, I bet there's a pretty good stats for people on welfare having more about abortions as well. You know, I tell you what, if you start looking into the amount of black babies that are aborted each year compared to white babies or like other populations, it's astounding. No reason. It makes so much sense why the African American population only has 12% people of this nation, because like a whole generation has been killed off. It's so sad when you start looking at the numbers, and then like a good percentage of the overall black community is like there's like a good percentage of them that are just in jail for like petty theft and smoking weed. I mean, there's some bad guys, but there's also just some bullshit. Not even saying black, it's literally me. I literally mean ghettos. Yes, that is a predominantly black. Yeah, I mean, when in America you think of like the hood and that type of stuff, Harlem, like those big neighborhoods within the inner cities. And dude, honestly, around here, like I would say, like, because I live in more of a Hispanic culture, so like the thing about Hispanic people is they're very, very family oriented. So like, even though like there's a lot of poverty where I live, you don't see it like the same, because people don't really act like they're poor. They just act like they're like trying to get by. They're just in the grind, you know, like that's the way it is around here. The land of manana, we call it.
1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues. Now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom.
I agree with that. I agree with getting our debts paid off in this country. People should owe us. We're fucking America. We've rebuilt countries. Okay? Like we send out major amounts of money and assets to other places while our people are dying. And it is sad.
I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, a military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much. And,
I agree on the military stuff. But I have a strong military.
Let me just caution the audience, let's not go down this road. We've asked you to please, keep restraining yourselves, and it would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over...
Wait, what happened last night, boys? You got to give us some context, buddy.
As chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability.
That's
in
what
our
happened.
Party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage.
Did the Republican Party get fucked in yesterday's stuff? I don't even know. I haven't not even looked.
Tonight, you want to look the GOP voter
Holy shit, man.
in the eye and tell them you resign. I will turn
I forgot yesterday was even election day.
yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for...
I agree. I think he has a few good viewpoints as well. But he's a talk. I agree. I think he's a talker as well. Although he's a talker, but he's a talker with some pretty crazy credentials. Like, the guy is pretty impressive. He's a young career politician. Yeah, for sure.
Losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Ross.
Sorry. This is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to Governor Christie. Why you...
I don't fucking like that guy, dude. He's a feisty son of a bitch.
Let's not do this. Let's let the candidates speak. Governor Christie, why you and not former President Trump?
Well, Lester, look.
I'm a hamburger, and I like cheese on my hamburgers. I like fries with ketchup. I eat them more than twice a week. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a fucking chance. Jesus Christ, dude. Why even waste the night coming up? Just stay home.
You said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now. We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every Jewish person in this world off the map. We have Ukraine with Vladimir Putin, a communist.
I might suggest that maybe the other thing is kind of happening right now.
KGB dictator who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine and he's going to move to the Baltics.
He would get hired to manage the...
We have inflation in this country.
He wouldn't. He'd eat all the food, dude.
Choking every American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues. who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world. And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things. We're not going to be small. And I'll say this about Donald Trump.
He does prove
who's
that.
going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country.
Right,
and it needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Thank you.
Listen, I don't want to make fun of a bigger guy, okay? I'm a bigger guy myself.
Let me turn to Senator Scott.
Jesus Christ, look at this silhouette, dude. Look at this silhouette. That's what's making me go on walks right now, boys, every time I get up. That silhouette right there.
Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters.
Honestly, after that guy just raked the fucking media over for their bullshit. Does anybody fucking even care about this? The rest of what these people have to say?
Into our party. The great
I can tell you this guy's not winning. He's sleepy as fuck.
opportunity.
His eyes are almost shut right now.
Party is now winning back African American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on.
I mean, why rock that type of a goatee? Like, it's not a likable look.
Faith. Our nation is facing some
shave it
challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation.
I love it because nobody cares if you make fun of people running for office. Who was doing this? So somebody else on YouTube or something, which I wouldn't do, but people would be like, wow, what a mean person. But since these guys are trying to get in charge of all our shit, we get to roast their asses.
Once again, become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues,
faith stuff.
the policies,
like any
matter.
Christian guy
we
would
have
be.
to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill that believes in each other enough for us to fight for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you. We're going to turn now to the challenges facing.
I don't know. He's not the worst.
Commander-in-Chief, you'll all be fielding questions first.
He needs to wake up a little bit.
And the Republican Jewish Coalition, and then from Kristen and Hugh. So as we continue forward, the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza. As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling
Very small population to stand on the religion platform. What do you mean? Like, you don't think that there's that many religious people? Is that what you're saying?
Bibi finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists. They're massacring innocent people.
Religion is becoming less popular every year. I would, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to see. I'd have to look at some stats for that. But I don't know, man. I think you. I hope you're right, because I personally am not a fan of religion. I think religion is a very, very like self indulgent idea. It's, it's trying to reach out and be good enough and do things to be able to be accepted by God. And I don't believe that God necessarily accepts you that way. I think faith and salvation is a thing that between you and your creator. And I am a Christian guy, so I believe that Christ did it, what he said. But I don't know, the religious stuff is just so crazy to me. And I grew up in a non-denominational church, so there was not really any like sort of like actions that we were held to, other than just like being like good to our parents and like trying to do what Jesus would do. That was basically it. The amount of people under 25 that are not religious is crazy. Yeah, but isn't that always the case, Evans? Like, young people are liberal. Like, if you're not liberal when you're young, like, I don't think you have a heart. I think if you're not more conservative when you're older, you might not have a brain, I think is the old saying. It's about how we feel about it's about how we feel about it. I could look again. I've read a few things that indicate it's declining, and it's not about how we feel about it. No, I know it's not about how you feel about it. I'd love to see some numbers on it, really. I don't know, but just people like I talk to, like in our generation, I think it's been very like something that people necessarily didn't talk about because it was so frowned upon to like share your faith or your religious ideas. And so like people just for like the reason of not being canceled or like looked down upon from other people, were really silent on it for a long time.
Would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could. He cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media, I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you this, I met the first plane load when they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you
I agree with that.
Would you be urging
it's a good thing.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations.
What does that mean, though? What does finish them mean? Does it mean destroy Hamas, the military arm of the military arm that has obviously like grown like detached from the actual Palestinian people? Like, is the idea to go in and completely wipe out like Palestinians in general, or is it just to wipe out Hamas? Because I would hope it's just to wipe out Hamas. The problem is that she does not understand what that entails. Yeah, exactly. Like I think I heard a round number of like 7,000 dead already by the raids.
We have to remember that they have to, one, eliminate Hamas, two, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and three, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need...
Well, we left access to a lot of military equipment over there, didn't we? Maybe. Not maybe in Iran, but close to.
To be clear-eyed, the last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy. Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the...
You know the crazy thing is? Like, I'm pretty sure like a good amount of the Jewish people, like majority, aren't even like Christian people. Like they don't believe in Jesus. But the idea that America backs Israel is completely Christian based. Interesting. It really is. And I've been listening to we've been listening to the Bible on stream recently, and like getting some history about like all of that stuff or where it came from, like the generations of people and stuff. It's been interesting.
Just heard in this issue on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
Not in terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border. And then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility.
Good.
This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But
I really like this guy. I'm really liking this guy.
From the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a
he's talking about her. Let's go back. I want to hear a little bit more about what he thinks about her.
The Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multi-million.
She served at the UN and then became a military contractor? Wouldn't that be like a problem?
So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation?
No, because it wasn't concurrent. Okay, so like there was enough time separating them. Okay, so that's just a shot at her. Okay. I got you. You gotta take some shots.
Is going to put this country first. or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right,
In which case, we've got two of them on stage.
No, it's still bad. Okay. Okay. I figured it was still bad. Like, it can't not be bad. It's like, it's a, I forget what it is, a conflict of interest, right? That's what it would be.
Swami, thank you. Senator Scott, yes, Senator, same question to you about, you're the president, you're on the...
So it's not bad. It's just not a conflict. What does concurrent mean? Like, it just mean continuous, right? Concurrent. Existing, happening, or done at the same time. Isn't that even worse? So she was serving at the UN and also a defense, a military contractor. I could definitely see where that'd be a problem. Well, yeah, we'll just pay this much for it. You know, I get to decide what it costs and what I buy it for. It's complicated. It's a lot. Happens a lot. Yeah, that's crazy.
Phone in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister, you tell him what?
Well, number one, I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas,
because her time in the UN provides her with insight into being a contractor. Holy shit. Dude, she's grinding. Maybe we do want her. She's a fucking gaming, dude.
Off of the map. We will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America. I would say to President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to...
So this guy wants to go to war with Iran.
Cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have a powerful response from America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to.
Dude, why can't we all just get in a room? It's like, get like all these guys. Have some Italian come in there and make them a delicious, porkless spaghetti and meatballs. Okay. Just like your mom would. Okay. And then get together, have a few beers, talk it out, go, what'd your God do? What did my God do? Oh, your God did that? Well, he, our books, they kind of, wow, they all are like a history of maybe what happened to humans. That's crazy. We should all read each other's books and learn more about each other. And then that happened. And then instead of everybody I'm going to put it in MMO terms, instead of a warlock, thinking that he knows what the warrior should be doing, and the warrior thinking that he knows what the druid should be doing, and the druid trying to tell the rogue that he knows what he should be doing because he has stealth as well. When in reality, if they'd all just play each other's classes, learn a little bit more about the game, then maybe they could find some common ground. At least that's what I like to think.
To destroy it.
All right, Senator.
We would make pasoli for them too. Pasoli and cinnamon roll.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in.
Beef pasoli.
Here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple. America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are three things I think I would say.
So we're also talking about this while we're supporting a war with Russia, who is also a Christian majority of people who also support Israel, who literally, they were the first ones to like go in and invade the German people. Like, what the fuck is going on? Holy shit, boys.
To him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is
Somebody's
absolutely your
fucking with
obligation
us.
to protect the territorial integrity of Israel. Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure, one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Governor Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate. Here it is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
We got two of you on stage.
The second thing that I will say is I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted and that we've allowed almost 100 hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal. Him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home. Him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question.
Wait, what did you accuse them of?
I know it's been very difficult.
Linked facility, limited airstrikes. Continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran that were killing hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as commander-in-chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. Now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. I think the
I was distracted once.
Semitism and campuses under attack.
Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband, mark my words, soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. True. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
Your time is out. Senator Scott, let me get you to weigh in on what you just heard.
Well, let me just say to every single university president in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right. Number one. Number two, to every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number three, any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism.
Most university presidents are liberals. They like to act like they are, while they literally just pick the pockets of all the kids that walk through their doors You know what I mean? Oh yeah, we're real liberal. Oh yeah, we love open-mindedness. Please come to our school. Give us all your fucking money and your future and your kids' future. Nope, you have to understand they start out as teachers. Yeah, yeah, that doesn't mean that there's a lot of bad teachers out there. No, liberal does not mean bad. No, I don't. I don't mean that. But how can you call yourself like a liberal person who thinks that we should have like commonwealth and then like be paid millions and millions of dollars? A lot of these presidents off the backs of people going into your college and like wanting to better themselves, and then but also at the same time going into like surmountable debt or insurmountable debt to do so, you know? Like that's crazy to me.
Mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students.
College presidents don't make millions? I think you're wrong about that. Let's look that up real quick. Average average salary of a triple A college. That'd be it. Oh, of state colleges. Let's just do state colleges, right? Average salary of state college. You know what? I could be thinking of like all the coaches and shit that are making money off of or the millions. All right, so ZipRecruiter says 160K, or ZipRecruiter says 34K to 290K. Salary.com says 160K to 520K. So I mean, even if you're doing like 4 years as a college president, right? Like if you're making upwards of that amount, you're making in the three millions in 4 years. That's that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But you're right, they're probably not all getting paid that much. College president. Yeah, it's the same. How much does the president of Yale make? 1.9 million a year, my friend. Just saying. It's a private school. Yeah, it's still a college though, right? Still, you can still get a student loan to take it out. That's federally insured, right? Right. Also, how many colleges are Are there like that? Yeah, but still, I mean, that's 2 million. I mean, that's a million over what I was thinking. It's less than 25. Still, I mean, where are the colleges that everybody wants to go to? You know, not saying they get to go, but I don't know, man. I'm glad I didn't go into debt to do it. Even though me and my wife did, we did go into debt to get her the rest of hers paid off or paid for. People who want to go to state colleges because they can't afford those. Yeah, for sure, for sure. There are about 4K colleges in America. That's crazy, dude. Well, the crazy thing is like that there's that many colleges and the average is still pretty high up there. Like 500K a year. Like, and I'm not saying that that's on the high average, but
students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong with our Jewish Americans. At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide. On our streets in New York, a Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on
yeah, he's struggling. I don't know if he's just nervous, Evans, or if he's really just has a struggle speaking
on college campuses in 2017, because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must force the people off those campuses and
Senator
frankly,
Scott, thank you. Let me
out of our country.
Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think?
I agree with him. People that are like fucking out, like, fuck. I don't know. I don't know if you should deport a young Spanish or Mexican American because they're out trying to support, or I don't know. Oh, because they think because they're being anti-Semitic one day or something. No, now don't get me wrong, they are trying to memorize their talking points, but he's having trouble recalling it. Yeah, exactly.
Think about what he just said.
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, he is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control. Right. That is what we have to confront. And as president, I can tell you this, we are not going to stand for this on college campuses any longer.
All right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor Christie, and considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times. And what has been charged?
Evans, did you see that guy, that Palestinian kid, approach the military checkpoint, throw a rock at it, and they just like popped his ass? Pretty sad, but at the same time, what a fucking idiot.
As a hate crime. What do you
What's up, Valencia? Jay Valencia, how you doing? We call that FAFO? What does that mean? What does that acronym mean?
say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety right now?
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually
Fuck around and find out. Yeah, exactly,
I was appointed
dude.
by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001.
That kid definitely did, unfortunately.
And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive.
I love hamburgers. Hamburgers are my favorite food
in this country.
If I could have a hamburger right now, I would get a hamburger and I would put it on the stadium and I would have you guys look at it before I ate it.
Synagogues being
I'm thinking about doing some YouTubes where I just
9/11.
eat.
We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion, if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with
I can
Muslim
appreciate
Americans
that.
all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on.
If I'm
either
president,
against
I will
Jewish
put
Americans
McDonald's
in
on
New Jersey
every street
or Muslim
corner.
Americans in New
No
Jersey.
one shall
It takes
do
leadership,
without.
Lester, to know how to do this.
There
You
will be
must
no
work
morning
with
that
both
isn't
sides. Both sides need to know it,
McDonald's
but let us
breakfast
never
morning.
have a false moral equivalence between
But
Hamas.
the thing is you have to pay for it the night before. You have to drink yourself to sleep to get McDonald's breakfast.
And Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Senator Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they've said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me...
Simple to make a threat like that permanently expelled from school. Yeah, why is it so hard? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I tell you what, this generation, I think, like the generation, right? Like maybe like two above you. Okay, like maybe like 15 years older than you, is really, really scared to not get canceled by their kids in the generation that's right under me right now. It's really interesting to watch.
Remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide.
And it's less because they don't want to share their opinions on stuff, and more that they just don't want their kids to like not talk to them. I'm in a weird place. I am the first year of being a millennial. Yeah, 81. Yeah. So yeah, that's about the age range I was thinking.
For the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists.
Like, imagine a daughter, and some people might not like what I'm about to say, but imagine your daughter. Okay, she goes through her lesbian phase in her teenage and like early 20s, and then like because of that, she cancels your ass and like you never talk to her again instead of her just like going through it and like, you know, not making a big deal of it. Like a lot of these kids, they want to be known for what they like. It's interesting. I guess I want to be known for what I like too, but the things I like are like Warcraft and like Star Wars and like streaming, you know. Uh how old? Are you on another platform right now? Yeah, Jay Valencia. I am streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and YouTube at the moment, and Twitter. But I unfortunately I have an option to mix the chats, Jay Valencia, but Twitch, they have a rule against mixing chats right now. So I'm trying to avoid like breaking the rules, but I don't know. We're gonna see. I sent a little message to the CEO about mixing chats. So, and he did respond. He said he would put it in some notes for the team. Oh wow, I was wondering who you were talking to. Thought I was bugging. See, then that's exactly what the thing I sent the Twitch CEO. It's really hard for people not to have any context.
We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking.
Yeah, but makes sense. They'll get butthurt because of competing platforms. Well, actually, recently, Jay Valencia, I don't know if you know about this, but Twitch for a little while, I've been multi-streaming for like 4 or 5 years at this point, and they shut it down about 6 months ago. They told everybody no more multi-streaming. You know, if you are if you're streaming on Twitch, you need to be streaming on Twitch other than mobile platforms. And they just had TwitchCon about 2 weeks ago, and the CEO came in. It came out and he released that thing. So now you can multi-stream on all the platforms and Twitch at the same. But that was one of the rules, is that you're not supposed to mix chats. But apparently, I heard the other day the CEO was on a literal multi-stream where like there were multiple chats mixed, and like he didn't have a problem with it. So I don't know.
Taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other.
Dude, crazy thing is, my daughter is 12 and has been asked out by 2 other girls already. Wow. Yeah, see that didn't even happen. Like, yeah, that didn't even happen when I was in school. Like, such a different world for these kiddos.
Terrorist activity says they want to destroy.
They'll get wow, that's pretty good. Then or at least they're open to ideas about how to streams evolve. Yeah, exactly. Valencia, what would you like me to call you? Just Valencia or Jay? You let me know.
Destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator
Valencia,
Scott, I'd like to
sounds
start
good.
with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
Dude, what about sending us?
Been very supportive.
Get a chance.
Question.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all.
IDK how to change it yet, but I'll figure it out. Oh, the name? Just started this app. Oh, nice. Yeah, I think you can change your name. It just gives you like a cooldown on doing it again for a few days. But welcome to Kick. I like Kick. It's a cool platform. I like that there's some competition in the streaming space for sure. Let's see who's texting me.
I'll get a chance to respond, but Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 6.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hopefully I'll catch you, catch a wave, myself on here too. Hey, there you go. Are you also a streamer, Valencia?
600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries.
Wait, is she saying this about the Ukrainian president said this?
Now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly.
So it's like more funding for Ukraine means more money for war against Russia. So I don't know. Christians killing Christians. I don't think I'm about it. I think we need to figure that shit out, man.
We have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military.
I actually think that's a great way to state what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to literally deteriorate the Russian military through blood, the Ukrainians people's blood. How crazy is that? Maybe this guy has a more of an idea of what's going on than I thought he did.
And that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine and Israel, that's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably.
I don't know if I can call myself yet one because of how new. But yeah, that's it's where I'm jumping headfirst to. Well, Valencia, you're definitely a streamer. If you're streaming, then you're a streamer, and don't get in your head about it. Just hit the go live button, and don't get discouraged because this is a rough hobby. Be very, very lonely sometimes, and but if you stay with it and trust that you can gain some enjoyment out of it, it will eventually pay off for you.
Standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national...
Thank you, bro. Really appreciate that. Can see that most aren't as welcome as you were. Hey, yeah, man. You know what? Streaming can be a very, very indulgent hobby for the person that's doing it. But I try to keep my focus on the stuff that we're doing and the stuff that's bringing me joy too. And I think if I can keep my eye on the ball there, then it'll be a fun stream for everybody. Put more context into the question. Yeah, Evans, that's definitely true.
Security emergency at our border,
Senator
we have
Scott.
to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us to great.
If you have any questions, Valencia, about streaming on this platform, feel free to message me. I'll be happy to help you out. And follow the stream, Valencia. Follow.
The Russian military while we use our resources, and frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for
yeah,
us
definitely
to destroy,
appreciate it. Thank you.
the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's
Thank you, Senator.
There we go. There it is, boys.
Persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic.
Bullshit.
It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is...
Yeah, we need to get the fuck out of Ukraine, boys. We need to get the fuck out of Ukraine. Holy shit. This guy is right. We need to get the fuck out of Ukraine.
More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now, in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk, these are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time at least condemn.
Thank you. That's time.
At least to condemn their banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you.
Group.
We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley,
Well, she deserves to
what
answer.
is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see.
Jesus Christ.
So this is what I
Fuck
will tell
her.
you is-
Fuck this bitch. Fuck her. How dare she? I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. I agree that we don't do our government the same as China or Russia, but I don't think they're our enemies just because of that. That is some bullshit.
First of all,
China's hands because of
you
these
had
foolish
your time to
policies.
talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank
Ambassador
you. The
Keys.
first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends.
Don't you fucking dare. Don't you fucking dare put Ukraine on the same status in the world stage as fucking is real, dude. This woman's gonna get cut off at the knees by the people around her. It's gonna be so sad to see. God damn.
After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China.
You mean partnerships like maybe like Russia and China and like the powers of the world? Oh my God.
China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador,
we have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is your take, and how long should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kristen, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together.
I want to just recall, I want you guys to recall, Russia, America would love the world to think that we won World War II. Russia's the one that invaded first, boys. We came behind. Just saying.
People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said, if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
And the absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Governor Christie, thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president, that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may respond to the Ukraine question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel to what many people are calling the new Cold War with China. And I remind the audience that it's important for our visitors at home to be able to hear you, and especially for the people in Beijing to hear you. Many Republicans believe that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that
Who's going to make our iPhone? Will I be able to order from Temu? Does this affect our relationship with Panda Express? They're all questions. Yeah.
he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, when we modernize it with...
We already took World of Warcraft away from the Chinese people. I mean, Jesus, what else could we do?
The focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America...
Did she just suggest that we start arming Taiwan basically like we've armed Ukraine, so that we can be on a two-front war with China and Russia? Is this what she just suggested? I want to say, guys, defense contractor. He's the one that makes the money off of war.
America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
Governor DeSantis, my question is specifically about the Navy. It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as 280. Is it enough? And what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is, to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation. I've already released a plan. We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out all our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities.
It's honestly, it's between DeSantis and this young guy. I forget his name right now.
The threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen over that entire period of time. Where are we going to get the money, and what would you build and what kind of ships to deter China from attacking Taiwan?
Well, two major problems with the question. Number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need in order to keep America safe. Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage in 3 continents at the same time, think about where we are today. In the Middle East, we are in the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary for us to achieve the goal of having a military that is ready to be lethal and come home safe.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Ramaswamy, I'm looking for specifics. What would you build? Where would you build it? When would they be in the water? How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that. Just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors. So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president. I do have to recognize that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
you're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
Do you have a number?
Fucking go, dude.
I think
This
that we
guy's
need to
awesome.
increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years. I think we have to, at minimum, be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
Hugh, I'd like to
by
respond.
20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your question. And my second observation is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively. And if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub program, Hugh. And
I agree
we
with
need
him
to
there.
increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China. But the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective. That we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican presidential primary debate. Please stay tuned.
That was a good answer. I like that. What's nice about this? Look at this. Boom.
And welcome back to tonight's NBC News Republican presidential debate. Once again, here's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. We're going to stay on China, and we're going to talk specifically about TikTok. Last week, Congressman Mike Gallagher, who is chairman of the House Bipartisan Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, published a long essay on TikTok following the flooding of pro-Hamas propaganda onto TikTok accounts across the United States. Chairman Gallagher called it shocking. He called the app predatory, controlled by America's preeminent adversary, one used to push propaganda and divide America. It's spyware, he said, a means of surveillance. Governor Christie, do you agree with Chairman Gallagher? And if so, would you ban or force the sale of TikTok?
I agree 100% with Chairman Gallagher, and let me say this. TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country. And they're doing
It's as much spyware as the fucking. We've all known that for fucking 20 years. If you were born in a millennial generation, these dumb idiots. That's not right. All dumb. But these people that have no idea, man, they don't even use computers.
intentionally. And when you saw what happened in the last few weeks,
like this guy doesn't know the difference. Like, doesn't know that Google's literally, listen, I could plug this guy's face into Google right now and have them make it into a cheeseburger. I literally combine his head with a cheeseburger in real time. Okay, they're definitely spying on all of us. They're all spying on us. Don't have shit to hide.
With all of this anti-Semitic, horrible stuff that their algorithms were
Although I do agree privacy is a major issue.
pushing out at a gargantuan rate. This is China trying to further divide the United States of America. And this is one of the big failings among many of the Trump administration. He talked tough about TikTok. I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have. And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison being put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know.
I don't know. I've gotten some pretty good tips off TikTok. I follow some cooking channels on there that are pretty fun to watch. Some gaming stuff too, but mostly cooking. I don't think it's poisoning.
What was going on in the theft of American
any more than any of the rest of them are poison.
Personal data and information. So in my first
any more than McDonald's is trying to poison. You know?
First week as president, we would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it, let them go ahead and sell it. But I'll tell you,
fucking ban. Let's ban stuff in America, guys. Hey, you know what, Americans? You like that thing that a lot of you guys use? We're fucking banning it. fuck? How anti-American is that bullshit?
Another reason we would do it. Facebook's not in China. X is not in China. They're not permitting a free flow of information to the Chinese people from our social media companies, yet we just open the door and let them do what they're doing. TikTok should be banned because they are poisoning American minds, and I would do it week one.
Thank you, Governor. I want to go to Governor DeSantis. Would you
Don't worry, boys. He's not making it any further than probably tonight.
China allowed American apps to operate in China.
Yes, I think that China is the top threat we face. They've been very effective at infiltrating different parts of our society. So my policy on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple. We win, they lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic, and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people. These kids get these devices and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking, it's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are gonna do that, and we are gonna make sure to protect the American people. It's a full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes, military deterrence, yes, economic decoupling, but also their role in our culture. If we ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
I wonder how people from China that live in America, like, they have all their family over there. They love people over there. We're just talking all this bullshit. It's not all bullshit, but we're just talking like out of our asses about everything we think about what goes on over there.
Ambassador Haley, speak to the parents out there. There are probably TikTok apps on half the phones in this auditorium.
No, I'm going to speak to the fact that 2 people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes,
you can fucking you can be a parent and not let your kids use it. Yeah, imagine that, man. Either that or like being aware that stuff is like your kids are going to run into that stuff, whether it's on TikTok or on Pornhub. Like, kids are going to be kids. They're going to explore. They're going to explore their minds and bodies. And, there is a certain amount parents can do and try to do. But like, I don't know, man. It's just when I asked about his kids using it. Did you see their CEO said to what their CEO said to Congress when he asked about his kids using it? Did he say that he doesn't let them on social media from a certain age or something like that? What did he say? He said, our kids don't use social media. They are too young. There you go. I agree. You know what? I think you reach 16 years old and your parents want to start an account for you on social media. That's one thing. Okay? But if you're 13, you don't need to be on it. And honestly, at 16, you don't need to be on it either. I was. And like, that's the only reason that I have maybe like a little bit of a bias toward, they do need to learn about it at a relatively not young age, but at least they need to know what's going on online in their teenage years. They need to understand what world that in 4 years they are going to be a major part of. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab my sandwich. I'm hungry. I hate to be broad, but it's called being a parent. Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. Having some investment in the thing you decided to put so much worth into.
Brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes.
Well, it's probably because China business is really good in Florida. And Chinese people also do business.
You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it. And of course, we banned China from buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing land
scrubbed
at
the
all. So
website
we've stood
last
up
week.
and we've
Thank you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which was about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my
before
daughter
preaching
out
to
of your
anybody else,
voice.
adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy
scum.
answer is actually to say
Scum,
that we're
she
just going to
says.
ban one app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the CCP. Now,
Yeah,
that's
of
a
course.
U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally, her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And I predict
Haley,
more Republicans will join it. But stop U.S. companies from turning over data to Chinese companies. That's the real answer. Cut the virtue
Kristen
signal.
don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was praised was because I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation. That is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part. That was a negotiation you could never
is
do.
what you said, Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. And so just own up to it.
You would never
you can
have been
change your
able to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation
But don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've said or what you've done in
against
South
China
Carolina.
my
You have brought
entire
them to South
career
Carolina.
at the
Ron is
United
right
Nations.
about that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by making
actual
sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought
get
them to the
any
Kelly.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did. That's the reason we got out of the Human Rights Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped
your
reading.
experience wasn't
it is your
UN foreign
turn.
policy
Mr.
experience with the millions
Ramaswamy.
you made afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on to the rules here, Mr. Ramaswamy. Senator Scott.
Thank you. We should. I appreciate y'all clapping for me already. This is wonderful answer. Love this. Without any question. What we should do is ban TikTok, period. Now, we saw under former President Trump, he tried to ban TikTok.
These fucking people, man, that want to ban stuff. You can't ban shit. It doesn't work. What a bunch of fucking retards, man. Holy shit.
TikTok twice, but was struck down by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok, you should eliminate the Chinese presence on the app. Period. We also should provide, in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the opportunity.
They just
to
don't
give their
understand the
kids
internet. Yeah, they
permission
don't.
Under 14,
They
to
have
be on
no
those.
they have no idea about it, and I don't think they realize just how ignorant they come across when they talk about it, because it truly is something that makes you look like you can't write. You can literally not spell correctly. That's what it's like compared to in their generation.
Apps. I think it's incredibly important for us as Americans.
It's like guns in Congress.
To take back control of the information, especially of our kids. Where does it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having parental consent.
Yeah, exactly. At least have some perspective
TikTok,
on it.
that is a first step. But it's not just TikTok. China continues to spy on our kids, but they're also buying our farmlands. We talked about this several times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near our bases. The third thing we have to do is make sure that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against us. My administration, we stopped that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made in America.
I'd like to see it happen.
My strategy.
Kristen.
Hugh, thank you so much. We're now going to talk about Venezuela, where millions have fled political and economic turmoil. Many Venezuelan immigrants are settling right here in Florida. Former President Trump and President Biden have taken different approaches to Nicolas Maduro's regime with little result. Former President Trump put economic pressure on Venezuela and backed one of Maduro's rivals. President Biden temporarily eased sanctions to encourage electoral reforms. Governor DeSantis, do you see the political situation in Venezuela as a threat to the United States, and what would your approach be?
We should never rely on Venezuela for oil like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential. On day one, I'm taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices. We're going to create jobs. We're going to lower energy costs, but we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing. That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross for hours in the hot sun, holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day, going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true, and everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club, and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case, but don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that.
Response,
our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, all, thank you. Let's turn to one of the biggest issues for voters. That, of course, is the economy. This is a question that will go to all of you. An Iowa voter recently told NBC News, "How am I going to make sure my pantry's stocked without breaking the bank?" You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you take office to help Americans manage the cost of living? So we're talking about short term here.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded the Made in America strategy, creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper that day. I'm talking about you become president. What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives our prices down because we know there's going to be a greater surplus. When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position. And as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as President of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective.
Very little of how these guys are going to do it. Yeah.
That the borrower is slave to the lender.
I don't necessarily disagree with this guy. I mean, bringing down that prices of transportation does decrease prices everywhere.
This nation to once again return.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some? You ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways that would put people on a better economic footing right away.
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to be able to get through school. And I did that because I believed in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out of the cart once it's ringing up, because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register that they can't afford the full cart of groceries anymore. We have to restore the American dream in this country. What can you do on day one? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up, and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room, and I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, weigh in on this. Ways that you can improve people's financial condition in the short term.
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country. Increase the supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the White House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy.
True.
I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride, in part, is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream. People will be more proud of a country if we're all making more money in that country. This is how we revive national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the federal debt to get this job done.
Let me turn to Governor Christie on that.
Well, look, Lester, part of the entire premise of the question, and I agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel and for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is a response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need, that will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Hillary, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. Americans in rural communities are being especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help rural Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina. And I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We'll cut taxes on the middle class. But we have to stop this spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources, let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan. And we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Christian.
Americans could see Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut in the next decade because the program is running out of money. Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans. What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience tonight who's 30 years old. If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And the fact is, we need to be realistic about this. There are only three things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not: retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching, Warren.
Middle-class citizens don't really get taxed that much. Well, they do, but most of them get it back. It's more complicated than just adjusting a few years. Yeah, I agree, but I will say, like, my mother-in-law and my parents, they both got hit hard these last couple years on tax. Like, to the point, like, where they're like, well, how are we gonna, like, pay this? Like, that's a lump sum that we just don't have at this point. Retirement age should be indicative of the average age of employability. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. I
don't know about that. Why would it be shameful for him to take Social Security? He's been paying into it just as long and probably more than anybody else that's American. So why would it be a problem that he's taking what he paid into? Just like any other investment.
There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps, but I'm glad it's there so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age? 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten, and how
it's harder for a 64-year-old to get a job than a 30-year-old. Yeah, well, and especially like particularly nowadays, you know, at least back in the day, like before the 2000s, like you'd be kind of like, oh, well, this person knows what's going on. They'll be able to get in on what we're doing, even around 64 years old. But now you go in and you're 64 years old and they're like, you know how to run the computer, and like, well, we have this thing set up for Teams, and like you have to be able to access this, and like there's all this different terminology that you're not gonna know, and so it's like, well, why would we hire this person that we're obviously gonna have to put like so much more resources into, like getting to the point just to be able to access like what we're doing. You know, that's a hard thing. We keep trying to run the world the same way as we did 200 years ago, or even 40 years ago. It's just people who no longer understand the world they live in. Yeah, man, and it's rough. Like, and that's why Social Security exists. It's for those people, like this guy is saying. You know, that you know. That just can't function the same way as people that are getting into the jive at a younger age.
I'm not going to start negotiating.
Not that they're any not worth any less. on a human level, but they are worth less to a company. I honestly think that the optimal age for a Senate Congress president is 40. Man, I would think like 47. 47 to 55 would be ideal for me. You got experience, your kids are probably getting a little older. You're realizing that you didn't completely have it all figured out. And that you raised not perfect kids, but pretty cool kids, like it's all that, like that all happens.
Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But for like my kids in their 20s, you go and you say, we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age for them. Instead of cost of living increases, we should go to increases based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that. And let's make sure we do that so that they can have more competition. That's how we'll...
I do agree that they should be reformed, but you have to be careful how. Yeah, you have to be careful how, especially in America, because everybody, when they create their character, they have to be at the same. Let's say maybe not. You want them to feel like they're at the same. They have the same. Or they should feel like they have the same opportunities if they work to unravel,
deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
And can you give me a specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to.
No
work
one
with,
likes
Chris,
losing
what I can tell you is
opportunity.
It's
That's
going to
true.
be those in their 20s just
Why
coming into the
FOMO
system,
is such a hard
and it
thing
should
to get
reflect
over.
more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy, have you determined if you would touch entitlements and Social Security? What, if any, reforms are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many...
No one, he fucking hates her. She's seething, dude. Yeah, they really don't like each other.
CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with zero as the baseline, and then ask what's actually necessary.
I'm good for... I love a $0 budget, man.
75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having, sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if
Mr.
we do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott, weigh in here.
There you
what
go, buddy.
are you looking at to keep
Good
Social
answer.
Security sustainable?
The bottom line is a simple one. We have to grow our economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or grandfather receiving Social Security, as President of the United States, I will protect your Social Security. The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion on Medicaid, about $400 billion on veterans benefits, $1.7 trillion on annual appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you do it is not by picking on seniors who have paid into a program that deserve their money coming back out to them. The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates 10 million new jobs, grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity and billions of dollars to your treasury. Number two, you have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes in 2017, I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
You can tell when he knows the. Oh yeah. His speech is much more fluid. You can tell the things that he's really passionate about, which is good. I appreciate a guy that is knowledgeable on the things that he's really actually passionate about.
I said, well, guess what? Revenue will go down. Well, in 2018, after we wrote it in 2017, what happened? Revenue went
I honestly
up by
think
3%.
I think this guy and Ron, the hard name to pronounce, the young guy, I think they've won this debate so far.
And the next year, it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works, but the lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if we're going to deal with it, we have to take our annual
Ron
appropriations
Swamdy, thank you.
back to
Yeah.
pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us about $500 billion in the next budget window. By doing
Senator,
that, we deal with Social Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator. Very quickly, would you raise the retirement age? Would you be open to raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
All you have to do is go to a farm in Iowa and watch the hard work and the dedication.
Yes or
you
no,
and I
though,
having
Senator?
a conversation.
Yes or
the
no,
answer
though?
is no, but listen to this, though, before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or 2 or 3 more is actually challenging to the physical body. You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers,
I agree.
They're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally to you, would you be open to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation. When you have higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the
You know, I honestly think that with Social Security should come a free incentive, or maybe even a tax break for taking a class on how technology works nowadays. COLA is not a direct correlation to inflation. It's always lower. Gotcha.
Increase in the actual inflation rate. We also do need to get it doesn't
cost of living,
get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the increase in the actual inflation rate. We also do need to get to at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues, be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security.
It's always lower. So I get cost of living for VA benefits as you should. Tell you what, man, you guys should get a car every year if you're a veteran, man. You can go big dick for the veterans, man.
Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress.
I basically lose to retirement percentage every year. That's such bullshit. inflation is up over 8%, and the cost of living is Jesus, man.
To stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to we talk about the retirement age is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other direction. So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy, but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country,
So
and that's just the fact.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Thank you, candidates. And we will be right back after a quick break from Miami, Florida.
Welcome back to tonight's NBC News Republican presidential debate. Once again, here's Salem Radio's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. When NBC News talks to voters, when I talk to voters every day, they all say that the border is a top issue. It can mean a lot of different things. It can mean 2 million people who crossed illegally last year. It can mean more than 150 arrests of people on the terror watch list. It can mean the burden on states from having migrants move into their states from the southwestern border. But I want to talk about opioids specifically and fentanyl. And I'll start with you, Senator Scott. Tens of thousands of Americans' families have suffered a death to fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking one pill. What can you do as Commander-in-Chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
Number one, we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing our border. I've already led on legislation that
The thing is, like, the border is a crazy thing. Like, and it's a good show of, like, you know, hey, don't cross here. But these people, they're going under. Man, they're like bowling through the earth, coming up in Arizona, coming up in Nevada. Like, dude, it's crazy shit. I know this sounds terrible, but what percentage of Americans is 10,000? Yeah, true. Not much. It's not much until you compare it to, like, how many people we've lost, like, in Afghanistan and Iraq and, like, now Ukraine. It is a lot compared to that, you know? I mean, no, I couldn't tell you how many, like, died in those past wars because I was a young guy, but I don't have the numbers here in front of me. But, like, 10,000, I know it wasn't, I mean, I know that's a pretty high number.
Available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing our border. I've already led on legislation that would sanction the Mexican cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China, then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop.
That's crazy. Less than 1/3%, 10,000 people. It's intense, man. That's intense.
70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It also allows us to
70,000
human trafficking travesty.
That's a little bit more. That's almost
in our country in the
six-
same path. If we are going to
sixth
deal
of a percent.
effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border. If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the
It's
challenge on the
70K. Yeah,
outside,
yeah.
and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside,
Jesus, man.
which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels. Can it really be done quickly? What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in two ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest, at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply do not have the man and woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement, and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country. And the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win.
Damn, boys. I think we're going to have to finish this in the morning. I'm pretty tired. I think I'm going to go hit the sack, and I'll be back on finishing this in the morning, and then playing Warcraft Rumble. So I'll see you guys then. Evans, thanks for hanging out, buddy.